Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural Visit Lauderdale Science Festival here at the Museum of Discovery and Science. My name's Joe Cox, and I'm the museum's president and CEO, and thank you so much for coming today. We are here in our AutoNation IMAX Theatre, and you are about to see an absolutely spectacular, even though I haven't seen it yet, I know the great work that SK does. So you're going to see a spectacular film in just a bit, but we've got a really wonderful treat for you first. And so this is our real roundtable conversation with three incredible cultural professionals, two from the film industry, and one who's just an all-round wonderful ambassador for art and culture, followed by an amazing sneak preview of the film, Arctic, Our Frozen Planet. Anyone feel like they could do with going to the Arctic today for just 5 minutes? Two of our guests are actually from close to the Arctic, so maybe they'll talk a little about that. So this portion of the festival is provided thanks to Science on Screen, an initiative of the Coolidge Corner Theatre with major support from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. So I'm going to take a minute to introduce our panel. So first, to my right, is Gina Glenn, the Director of Film Distribution for IMAX Corporation. Gina's worked in the entertainment industry for a minute and distributes original content and DMR titles, and she'll explain what that is, to IMAX theaters worldwide. Gina's really one of our key partners in IMAX to make sure that here in Fort Lauderdale, we have one of the very best IMAX theaters in the entire country. Another person who makes sure that when you come to MODS, you see some of the very best content in the world is Amber Horton, who's Vice President of Sales and Marketing for SK Films. She's also an executive board member for the Giant Screen Cinema Association, which is the association that really works hard to make sure that movie theaters and museums and IMAX creators are working together to really bring you the latest, greatest, most visually spectacular films. We were expecting Sandy Leiderman, the Broward County Film Commissioner, but she had a family emergency and couldn't make it. So Andrew Martineau, who's a great friend and a wonderful all-round cultural ambassador. We were saying earlier, he literally wears about 27 different hats where he works to make arts and culture vibrant and alive here in our community. So Andrew, thank you for stepping in at the last minute. So what I'm going to do is we're going to spend about the next 20 minutes talking with our guests. We'll have a couple of minutes for some Q&A, and then we'll go into Arctic in a minute. So first off, Gina, welcome. Talk to us a little bit, if you would, about your role and kind of what led you to being here today.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you again to you and your team for having me here today. I joined IMAX about 20 years ago now. With my legal background, IMAX recruited me to their legal department, and I was charged with revamping the motion picture license agreements and distribution agreements for IMAX. I quickly decided that my passion and love was for the movie side of the business and was able to transition into the IMAX, what we call today the IMAX Filmed Entertainment team. So today I work with the IMAX Filmed Entertainment team, which oversees all of the distribution of all IMAX content, including IMAX documentary content, the IMAX Hollywood movies, and the IMAX live content.
I'm going to pass our microphone back and forth for a minute. Amber, so welcome to South Florida and for escaping the snowstorm. I'm so looking forward to this exclusive sneak peek of Arctic, Our Frozen Planet. The film's described, and I'm going to read, as an epic 3D adventure across the magical realm of snow and ice at the top of our planet. It explores how, for millennia, its steady seasons have allowed life to thrive. But now, global warming is upsetting this balance. And scientists are discovering that what happens in the Arctic affects us all. Could you share why this film is so important to SK Films, particularly now?
Thank you, Joe. I think it's exactly like what you said. What happens there affects us all. I think that's really key. You don't think what happens here locally in South Florida, where it's so hot outside, can have an effect as it does in the Arctic. But the Arctic itself is a space that is 8 countries with 4 million people living in it. So what happens there does affect them very quickly. And the issue is more, can they keep up with the pace of change? There's always been a freeze, there's always been a thaw, but it's happening so rapidly now. Can they keep up with the pace? And I think the film really does take us there and sort of show us what's happening and perhaps some ideas on how to start mitigating that.
Thank you. And I know we're all looking forward to seeing that in just a few minutes. Andrew, I described you as being an ambassador for art and culture. You know, since I've known you, you've worked on some amazing projects to really bring art and culture to life, from Zero Empty Spaces, Design Week, Art Fort Lauderdale. Would you maybe share with our guests, you know, a little bit about what a day in your life looks like in making art and culture come to life?
Yes, thank you for having me. So, as Joe had mentioned, I'm a big advocate for art and culture here in Broward County and other areas, and you know, always find places like this that incorporate, you know, film and the science behind it, and then behind many of the things going on are incredible things to have in our community. And so, you know, in order for us to be able to kind of facilitate more and more art and culture here locally, I created a week-long event called Fort Lauderdale Art and Design Week that happens every the last week of January every year, and it incorporates multiple events throughout the county. Fort Lauderdale has several events. There's some events that were hosted here at the IMAX and at the Science Museum here as well, and in Dania, Hollywood, and other areas. And so I always find it very important for us to be able to engage in the arts in very many ways, and, you know, be able to get the word out of all the many things that we have here to offer from an art standpoint. There are a lot of really incredible local artists here, that not just filmmakers, but also visual artists, that I find creating platforms for them to be able to showcase are very important. And, you know, this theater is another place that creates these platforms for us to be able to learn about things that are going on in the Arctic, and also be able to try to find, you know, some of those creative solutions by some of the people that come and attend here, by the knowledge that they gain, you know, being able to solve some of these problems that some of these films show.
Thank you. We're going to go back to Gina. You know, how many of you have been to our IMAX here at the museum before? Okay, and I'm sure you've all seen some pretty spectacular films, but I think, you know, Gina's probably one of the people who's seen probably more IMAX films than anyone in the world. You know, over the last, you know, couple of decades that you've been working, would you maybe talk about, you know, some of those moments that have really inspired you? And, you know, IMAX takes us to anywhere. It takes us places we've never been, sometimes places we may not really even want to go. So would you maybe share a little bit about some of those places and experiences?
Absolutely. Thank you again, Joe. There's 2 movies that really jump out for me that have had a big impact on me. The first one would be a documentary we did about the Hubble Space Telescope. Those images from the Hubble telescope are just astonishing. You know, it's almost as though your brain can't keep up with what your eyes are seeing. Another one is a movie we did, Tony Meyer's movie, A Beautiful Planet, narrated by Jennifer Lawrence. And again, those visuals from the International Space Station are astonishing. They're larger than life in scope and detail. You know, the visuals from the night visuals are just overwhelmingly beautiful. I would say the experience is emotional and inspirational. And so those would be 2 of my top favorites. And
we'll talk a little bit about Avatar later. So Amber, I've had the opportunity over the years to meet with some incredible filmmakers and gotten a little glimpse into what it takes to bring, a movie to life. You work in the industry day in and day out. Would you maybe talk about what it takes to bring a film like this to the screen from start to finish in, a couple of minutes?
Thank you. Well, yeah, it takes a lot of guts because you got to come up with a great idea and find a way to finance it and make it happen. In the case of Arctic, we're working with BBC Earth and their natural history unit. So these are people who have made their life's work on incredible filmmaking. And in this case, I think, and in all cases, it's a lot of planning and it's a lot of luck. So this film was filmed over 3 years across 8 countries, and back to those places during many different seasons. As you'll see, there's sort of a seasonal story thread that goes throughout the film because so many different things happen in the Arctic in the summertime that are very different than what happens in the deep winter in the Arctic. So a lot of planning. And this film was shot during COVID restrictions as well. So you can imagine that's extra planning and plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and then a lot of waiting. So it's, you set up and, in some cases they're setting up time-lapse photography that they film over weeks so that we can see in real time glaciers calving. We can see the effects of climate and a warming climate on those glaciers, or the poor cinematographer who's in a dry suit in the Arctic Sea to catch these beautiful seals. So it takes a lot of work for us at SK. The kinds of films that we want to show, that we want to represent, are films with a strong story and a story and a film that you'll leave with having an emotional connection to, which we think this film does a very good job at.
I'm actually going to follow up with you on that for a second. Here at the museum, we've created our hub for resilience education because we really believe that environmental sustainability is something that we should all be a part of. And so we brought together about 30 different groups who are working to make the museum our hub for education around resilience, environmental sustainability, and climate change. And one of the ways we'll do that is through taking people on incredible journeys and seeing inspiring films. Would you maybe talk about how you think this film will inspire our visitors when they come back to see it, when it opens in May, to be part of the solution? Although you're going to get to see it in a minute.
That's a great question. I think these films at the heart of it are inspiring because they're educational and you're in this space, and it's one of the only few spaces, one of the last, bastions of places where you put your phone down for 45 minutes and you actually take in what you're seeing. And the content here is inherently inspiring. And I think if it does anything, I hope that it inspires people to look at their own ecosystem differently, not just about what's happening in the poles, because whatever happens at either pole is going to affect us all. And we do need to be cognizant of that. But if you just look at your local ecosystem, what you can do for that too, that alone, I think, is that moment and that inspiration of change that I think this film will come with. As for, we've created some supportive materials to go with the movie that your team will get to explore, because there's actually an impact campaign that was created by BBC Earth that you can tap into that's got live social content with local influencers to help just expand and create as much awareness as possible. So I hope that people are truly inspired about the Arctic, and who knows, maybe someone from South Florida will decide it's time to put their parka on and head up to the high Arctic.
Going to say 90 degrees outside. It's lovely for those of you visiting from Canada, but those of us who live here might like a little chill every now and again. Now, movies don't just get made in the Arctic. In fact, one of my very, very favorite movies from the 1980s, which for those of you who are a little younger was a long time ago. So one of my favorite science fiction films from the 1980s was Flight of the Navigator. Anyone remember Flight of the Navigator? Okay, go watch Flight of the Navigator. Great film about this alien who travels the universe, collecting animals and picks up a little boy from Fort Lauderdale, and it was actually filmed here in Fort Lauderdale. They fly right down the New River over the Andrews Bridge. So go watch the movie. Andrew, would you maybe talk about the film industry here in Broward? Because I'm sure a lot of people don't know there's a lot going on and a lot coming soon.
Yeah, certainly a great time to be here in Broward. There's a lot of incredible things going on here with film. We're just about to break ground on the largest set of sound stages in the state of Florida here in Fort Lauderdale, which is going to be hugely incredible here for the local film community. But also there's going to be, obviously several films that we'll have shot here. And obviously films are great ways of showing cities and showing all the incredible things our cities have. And the fact that we're going to be able to have these sound stages. So, and just to backtrack a little bit of why sound stages are so important, there's a big dearth of sound stages globally. And so, most people know a lot of films are shot in LA, a lot are now shot in Georgia, but now there's such a backlog of people wanting to shoot in these sound stages that people have to wait a very long time. So now with these sound stages opening here in South Florida and in Fort Lauderdale, we're going to be a major, major hub for a lot of these things to be shot here and for other people to see the wonderful things that we get to enjoy on a daily basis here in Fort Lauderdale. So that's a major, major thing. And obviously our new film commission that's been in for about a year now was formerly from Miami and is the incoming Film Florida president and very, very involved in the film community on a global level. So lots of exciting things. Look forward to seeing a lot of familiar venues and locations in films coming up.
Which leads me to a question for Gina. If we're going to have all this new, growing film industry, that means there's some great career opportunities locally for our visitors, for children here in Fort Lauderdale to think about getting into the film industry without necessarily needing to move to California or Georgia. So would you maybe talk about, the kinds of careers that the film industry has and how STEM education is an important part of those?
Again, a great question, Joe. I would say, certainly at IMAX, we are attracting engineers of all disciplines. We're looking for engineers with audio engineer experience, developers, programmers, and these engineers are truly what makes the IMAX experience what it is today. And there just continues to be many opportunities, as you say, in marketing to get the word out for these movies and all that stuff.
I'm going to stick with you for a second because we were talking earlier about the overwhelming success of the latest Avatar movie, Way of Water. Anyone here see that? Yeah, pretty spectacular. I described it to someone as one of the most beautiful nature documentaries about an alien planet I've ever seen. Would you maybe talk about, the movie industry? Because we hear a lot about, what's going on with the movie industry. And clearly when there's a great movie like Avatar, or the documentaries that we show here that fill our theater each and every day, what movies are you most excited about coming to IMAX? And it makes it so different to see it on an IMAX screen.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you to you and your team for partnering with us on Avatar. Avatar 2 was truly spectacular in IMAX 3D. I think two movies that I'm really looking forward to this year will be the Christopher Nolan Oppenheimer movie, which will release in July. Christopher Nolan shoots all of his movies with IMAX cameras, so the results speak for themselves. They're visually stunning. They'll fill the screen. Another great movie we have coming this year is the sequel to the Dune movie. Filmmaker Denis Villeneuve also shoots all of his movies with IMAX cameras. So again, it's great for the IMAX brand. It's great for our theaters, and it really helps us differentiate what is the giant format IMAX experience.
Amber, question for you. You know, SK has done some beautiful films over the years, and we've had lots of them here at the museum. You know, we were talking about one that I'm really excited about coming down, Blue Whale. Would you talk about that? Because we could almost show a life-size blue whale on this screen.
Absolutely. So we have a film that we're releasing this spring, summer called Blue Whales, Return of the Giants. And we're really excited about that because that's my marketing line. You took it. See it on the IMAX in life size. It's, you know, I don't know your width, but it's probably about 70 to 80 feet. And so a small blue whale is 70 to 80 feet. So that is where the IMAX technology and medium is just the best. Not every film should be made in an IMAX film or not an IMAX documentary, but there are certain themes, certain animals, certain environments that just lean themselves to the IMAX medium. And I think Blue Whales is one that is really going to do it. We're really excited about that. And just wait till you have that whale tail in the middle of your atrium there, 25 feet long. The tail alone is 25 feet. So I love it. I love being able to use this medium to tell a story and to transport people under the sea where these behemoths live. I mean, I can't look out at the ocean the same way anymore, thinking something that's 100 feet long lives out there. So yeah, we're really excited about that. And that's why my job is fun and exciting. Every new film, I get to dive deep into the content of some incredible ecosystem or world. And I love working with museums like you guys who get to take the educational materials and really run with it for schools, for families. That's what makes me most excited about this industry.
Thank you. We've got just a couple of minutes left. I wanted to see if we had any questions from the audience for any of our panelists about IMAX, about filmmaking, or about art and culture here in Fort Lauderdale. If not, I have lots more questions. Oh, where are the sound stages being built?
Just off of Martin Luther King Boulevard, there's an area there that used to be an incinerator lot that they're going to be building them over there.
Anyone else?
Yeah. There is an IMAX theater in a private house. I don't know that there is one in Fort Lauderdale, but we certainly do have people who have private IMAX theaters in their homes.
Although they're not quite this big. Yeah, they're not quite this big. Yes? Well, I think this is for two to my left.
I would say the biggest challenge filming in IMAX is the scope and the scale. You know, the shots are that much bigger. The detail is, there's just so much more detail involved. You really need a filmmaker who knows what they're doing, an experienced filmmaker. That's why I mentioned Christopher Nolan, who is a revered filmmaker, Denis Villeneuve, Michael B. Jordan has joined the pack of filmmakers who love to shoot with IMAX cameras. Again, it's a sophisticated, experienced filmmaker.
I'll just add to that. I think the most important thing for anyone who is filming for the IMAX medium is your timing and your pacing. So you need a good editor who's not going to be, I have this every time we cut the trailer for a movie. They want to cut it fast, like what you see, out on TV, and you just can't. You need things to be able to breathe on this screen. They need their time and space because, especially if it's in 3D, the first thing you're seeing is the 3D effect. You get the wow, and then it's like, okay, what else am I seeing in this image? So you need a filmmaker who is going to let everything breathe. And that's challenging sometimes when you only have 45 minutes to tell also a story. So those are the biggest things I think you have to, especially if it's going to be 3D, you have to let every scene, every shot matters. You've got to start with a proper shot list. You've got to have a plan. You can't just go into whatever space and decide I'm going to make an IMAX movie, because you really have to make sure that what you're creating is going to work in this space, because it is the most unforgiving space of your entire life if you're a filmmaker. So that would be my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. Well, we are out of time, but I want to thank our wonderful panelists, Gina Glenn, Amber Horton, and Andrew Martineau. Thank you all for joining us. And I want to remind everyone that this portion of the festival was provided thanks to Science on Screen, an initiative of the Coolidge Corner Theatre, with major support from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. So thank you to them. Thank you to our panelists. And now sit back and get ready for a fantastic sneak preview of the film Arctic, Our Frozen Planet from SK Films.